we are practicing this year. And practicing means we are doing things over and over and over again as a learning experience, as part of the learning process. There's an importance to the idea of practice, right? When we have a practice, we're strengthening, we're building capacity, we're making ourselves more resilient, right? And when we practice and we do things like practice speaking our truth, practice making hard decisions that take us in the direction that is true to our heart, when we practice getting connected to our true story so that when we go confront things that are challenging or confront things that are emotionally intense, as we will be doing this month in February, when we have that inner practice of connecting to the self and connecting to the heart and doing it over and over and over again, we strengthen it so that we're not as vulnerable to reacting, right? Because reacting is what happens when we're not practiced in that true story, and being able to create and craft a more deliberate, more intentional life. So good morning. Today we're going to be talking about February and the celestial weather for February. And as I was just saying, the most important practice that you need to be cultivating all of 2024, but especially in 2024 until mid-June, is you need to cultivate a practice of being yourself. You need to cultivate a practice of being deeply connected to the true story of who you are. And that's a practice that takes repetition. That's a practice that takes community. You need to be in a community of people who speak your language, who see you for who you are, who are able to speak to you from that authentic place. You need to be able to keep yourself embedded, if you will, in the energy of the true story of who you are. So I'm going to start today because of this. I'm going to start today with sharing something with you. I have a gift for you, and I want to share it first for two reasons. One, I don't want to forget to do it. And number two, it's so important that I want to put it first, because what I want to share with you is something, it's a resource that I want to give you, that when you utilize this resource, when you take advantage of this resource, it gives you the practice, that strengthening, that practice to be yourself, so that when you go in the world and you confront things that maybe make you reactivate that old pattern of compromising yourself, giving up of yourself, maybe, not being completely authentic, that when you are practice in that alignment, it's easy to get off track. So I just want to share this with you relatively quickly because I have a lot to cover today, because it's a busy month and there's a lot going on. But if you didn't know, I have an online Understanding Human Design membership community. This is a community where we focus weekly on helping you integrate your human design. So in this membership community, we've got all kinds of resources for you, including weekly live calls with me. These live calls are open coaching sessions. They're calls where you can bring your chart if you have specific questions about your chart. We have calls where we talk about specific topics. So for example, this month in our membership community, we're going to be talking about relationships by design and elements in your chart or in your partner's charts or in your kids' charts or in your parents' charts. We're going to be talking about charts and how charts interact. We oftentimes talk about specific topics. Like this week, our topic was type and authority and how do we get back in the body. So you have access in this membership community to weekly live calls. We have 3 to 5 calls live each month. We also have a community manager, Teresa Miller. And Teresa gets in here oftentimes during the month too. And she does all kinds of creative things where she does exercises and fun creative activities to help you deepen your connection to your chart. I know not only because of design, because human design actually shows us this, but I also know from years of working with people that when we're in a community, and particularly in a community with people who speak our vocabulary, that when we're in community with each other, it actually deepens your capacity to really strengthen your connection to your design and the truth of who you are. So in our Understanding Human Design community, we have these 3 to 5 live calls. This is a private community. So it's a very safe space where we really get to know each other. We get to network with other people who are exploring human design. You get to network with people who are going through the deconditioning process. We do all kinds of creative activities to literally help you rewrite your story. We have an online private community where you can connect with each other. It's really kind of beautiful. I've actually had members who are in the same geographical area who meet up and have coffee together. So it's a great place to meet new friends and build a community when sometimes you're the only one around you doing that work, right? It's also one of the things we have in the community is we have a how to live your design expedition program. This is actually a resource center that you have. This goes through type, strategy, authority, profiles, the centers, and it's specific to you. So you can watch these parts of the program that relate specifically to your chart. After we go through looking at all those parts in the chart, once a quarter, we have a big event where we get together for an intensive online retreat. And we actually go through other parts of the chart and we work on rewriting the narrative. So this expedition program is really, really powerful. People want to make human design really complicated. And I'm a big fan of making it simple. And part of the simplicity of human design is really just refreshing yourself again and again and again about the basics of type and authority and emotional themes. Emotional themes teach us so much. And it's easy sometimes when we get out into the world or we start going deep into our human design studies to lose connection with those basic pieces. Ra always taught that if you follow your strategy for your type and your authority, all the other things that are going on in your chart won't matter because you will naturally click into place. You'll click into alignment. But that deeper level of knowledge about yourself, your type, your energy, your chart, that deeper level of knowledge and constantly revisiting that knowledge. First of all, every time you revisit it, you're going to learn something new. I still learn something new. Secondly, as you keep doing that, it just keeps practicing you, right? You stay practiced and you stay rooted in your story. So we also have, as part of the membership, weekly recorded energy forecast. So you actually get an ebook version of my 2024 Quantum Human Design Evolution Guide, which walks you through the transits for the year. So you get a video, you get our weekly written report, you have exercises and contemplations to help you get the most out of the week. So you get to actually take back control of knowing what's up in the celestial weather and how you can stay connected to yourself. And I want to just give you, because again, staying connected to yourself is the thing right now. It's the thing right now. You have to get and stay connected to your heart and to the heart of who you are and who you were designed to be, the true story you were designed to fulfill as we go through this really intense first half of this year. Because if you don't know who you are, you make yourself vulnerable to buying into somebody else's story about you, especially if you're a fifth line profile, right? You make yourself vulnerable to thinking there's a formula for success that you have to follow that might be contrary to actually how you are and who you are, that might ultimately, if you're not careful, leave you in a broken vitality loop where you spend all of your energy pushing and hustling, which is a big theme right now, against who you are because you're following somebody else's formula for success, somebody else's definition for success. And you'll run the risk of burning yourself out trying to be something or somehow that you're not. So join the membership. It's free. I'm giving you a month free trial. The link, Jamie's going to post the link for you on Facebook and also in the chat if you're watching us on Zoom. Join us for a month. Try it out. Go into the expedition programs. Get refreshed on the information that you need to learn about your type, about your authority, about getting back in your body. Come to the calls. Let's hang out because we'll be hanging out together. Bring your questions, bring your charts, bring anything you want to bring. Come join us for our relationship program this month. We have a relationship program that we'll be doing, and I look forward to seeing you there. So, without further ado, let's talk about February because there's a lot going on. I have notes. I don't usually use notes, but I had notes today because there's a lot going on, and I want you to get the most out of this month. This is a month where traditionally we celebrate Valentine's Day. And at the end, I'll tell you why we're not going to be, Valentine's Day needs to be moved. It's just the worst placement of any holiday in the entire calendar year. I don't know why we put it there, but we did. And I would like to vote to move Valentine's Day to a different time. So we're going to start first with doing a big picture overview of the outer planets and sort of the themes that we're grappling with this month. And the first thing I want to say is that on February the 3rd, we move into the first quarter of the year. So the human design year is split into 4 quarters. Each one of those quarters represents an important part of the creative cycle. So really the whole year is one long creative cycle that has all kinds of different parts to it, 4 quarters to it. And this first quarter, which starts on February the 3rd, is the quarter of possibility. I like to use gardening metaphors. So to me, this is the quarter where we get to look at seed catalogs. And maybe if you're living where I live, where it's pretty cold, you start your garden in the basement under the grow lights. You get ready to prepare for the spring, but it's definitely not spring yet. So we're definitely exploring creatively in this cycle themes around possibility and potential. And this cycle starts with the sun highlighting the gate 13, which is the gate of narrative. So this entire creative cycle, which lasts until May the 3rd, is all about looking at the story you tell about who you are and how you are, which is why I want you to join the membership so that you're strengthening your story from the get-go, because that's really your job this season. This creative cycle is for you to build a really strong story about who you are. So we're really beginning this entire cycle and all of this month for sure with the idea that the story we tell about who we are and how we are is ultimately influencing quite significantly what we create. Okay. So your story matters because your story is part of your creativity and it's part of what's manifesting in your life. So that's our first big shift for the year, or first big idea for February. The second thing we're going to be looking at in the month of February is let's look at the nodes. So I like to think of the nodes as the plot outline for the story we're telling, right? So we're telling this story over the arc of February from the 1st until I think the 28th. I don't know, is this year a leap year? I can't remember. So we're telling this magnificent story over the arc of February. And the plot outline for this story is all about moving our energy from the gate 57, the gate of instinct, to the gate 51, the gate of initiation. Now, this is the first of a series of nodal definitions, nodal gates that are in some way, shape, or form revolving around the will center. We have this whole, a plot outline right now that involves the will center. And as you'll see, over the next few months, that there are all kinds of different places where the themes of the will center are playing out in the celestial weather. This sets us up, and I talked about this in the 2024 preview that we did last month. This sets us up until mid-June to really be exploring the relationship between personal will and alignment. And this is true. We're talking about this in general, and it's true for everyone. So whether this center is defined for you or open for you, doesn't matter. This is up for all of us. This is a theme in the celestial weather. We are looking at the difference between pushing, forcing, defining our value from external metrics versus dropping into this space where we know our value. We know our right place in the world. We value ourselves enough to make those hard and difficult decisions sometimes that we have to make. We have to set those boundaries. To say no to the things that don't match our value and to create from our value and from the heart of who we are. And that level of creativity is magical. It's synchronous. It defies sometimes the formulas that we're taught around success. And so we are continuing to go to the mat with this idea of we need to sync up our stories. We need to be telling a story. We need to literally be I am. It's an I am kind of a statement. I am whatever it is I'm intending to create. You become it, you hold it, you embody it, and then you wait and see how the story unfolds based on what shows up in your external world. That's a very different way of creating than how many of us were trained. Most of us were trained to push and to hustle. And I'm saying we have finite capacity for hustling right now. February really, really tells us, drives home the idea that you will create in accordance to the story you tell about who you are. So tell a darn good story and don't settle for less. That's our big theme for February. The next thing we want to look at is the outer planets, because our outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, or if you want to do that in order, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, our outer planets kind of set the tone for what's going on this month. So Pluto highlights the gate 60, the gate of conservation. Uranus highlights the gate 23, the gate of transmission, and Neptune still sits solidly on the gate 36, the gate of miracles. It'll move, I think, in April. Can't wait for it to shift. So this gives us kind of this very interesting outer theme. So remember that our plot outline is we're learning to align with our true identity. We're learning to heal our self-worth. The outer planets are telling us that we're shifting our minds. We're focusing on what is working, or at least we're supposed to be, right? We are using gratitude and leveraging gratitude as a tool to push innovation and change. We are breaking down and breaking ourselves free from limiting patterns, and we're defying previous expectations. So there's a lot of really good, solid energy in the outer planets that's supporting us and really making solid change, really taking advantage of that awakening energy that's showing up in the nodes. And that alignment energy that's so essential for us to be able to amplify exponentially what we create when we are rooted in our natural, authentic identity. So those planets, again, are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So Uranus highlights the 23, Neptune the 36, and Pluto the gate 60. The next thing we want to look at, and this is the thing, I am not a big fan of saying, whoa, look out, the weather is bumpy, but it has the potential to be really tense. I mean, the energy this month, and I would say, again, the energy for the first half of this year is really divisive. And it's a divisive energy that can be interpersonally divisive, like we could be coming up against each other, but it's also very much about drawing a line in the sand, if you will, with yourself, about really dividing your timeline and your story and saying, I'm not doing that old stuff anymore. I'm done. I've created this space, right? I've created this line in my own personal story, and I'm going to divide my own perspective and my perception from the past. I'm going to liberate from the past. I'm going to let go of the past. I've made all this room. I've released all this stuff that's not working. It's time for me to use this space that I've created to bring myself into alignment with what I want, with what I need. But this energy has the potential to be dodgy, and you would be surprised that it could be dodgy, but it could be, because if you're dealing with people who haven't done that work, right, who haven't said, okay, here's the line, then they may be still reacting from old patterns. So we're going to look at Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn highlights the 37. This is kind of a new shift in Saturn. So Saturn is the gate of peace, or not. Remember, we're talking about archetypal themes. And so when we talk about archetypes, we're talking about a field of information that has all kinds of little facets and angles to it. Peace and war, or peace and fighting, are in the same field of information because they're really the same idea, just opposite ends of a spectrum. And so when we say the gate 37 and Saturn highlighting the gate 37 brings us the theme of peace, absolutely, that's a potential, right? But we're divided potentially too. And so that divisiveness can also be, there are people who are really not experiencing peace. And certainly those drums of war that have been kind of beating in the background for some of us and in the foreground for many of us, those fighting themes are there. And we are fighting over the idea that there isn't enough. We're fighting from old pains from the past. We're fighting because we've rationalized something. There's lots of things we've rationalized. And so for us to create peace, we have to look at what's also highlighted by Jupiter, the gate 24, which is the gate of blessings. And so that means for us to really activate peace, we have to find the blessings from the pain of the past. And this is such an important warning for us right now, and I don't like to give warnings, but you really have to be mindful this month to not settle for less than what you want. And that doesn't mean you have to fight for it. It doesn't mean you have to combat other people to create what you want. You got to get back into the heart of who you are. You have to get back into the heart of who you are. And when we move back into that heart of who we are and we stand in our value, then we don't rationalize. We don't fall prey to the patterns of the past, and we don't settle for less than what we want. But certainly it's energy that has the potential to be a little bit dodgy. And so it's emotional. And there's a lot of emotional energy happening this month. And as I said in the beginning, when we confront emotional energy, it has the potential to be fiery. It has the potential to be spicy. It has the potential to be intense and reactive. For us to use emotional energy in a way that enhances our creativity, you have to be practiced. You have to be practiced in staying true to ourselves. We have to be practiced in knowing what our values are. We have to be practiced in thinking abundantly. We have to be practiced in keeping ourselves focused on what do we want versus paying attention to where what we want isn't showing up, or where perhaps we still might have old stories of lack. Mercury this month. I'm going to read this list again, just so that you know, if you don't have these resources available. First of all, we talk about this every month every week in the Understanding Human Design community. If you have not purchased a 2024 ephemeris, those are available at humandesignsystem.com. This will give you just a handy dandy reference guide to looking at where are the planets right now. And again, the 2024 Quantum Human Design Evolution Guide talks about what's up in the celestial weather too. So I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because I don't want you to go down a rabbit hole with the specific gates. I want you to just hear the themes. So Mercury this month, the planet of communication. Mercury goes to through the gate 61, the gate of wonder, the gate 60, the gate of conservation, the gate 41, the gate of imagination, the gate 19, the gate of attunement, the gate 13, the gate of narrative, the gate 49, the gate of the catalyst, the gate 30, the gate of passion, the gate 55, the gate of faith, the gate 37, the gate of peace, and the gate 63, the gate of curiosity. Here are the pieces that I want you to hear. You don't have to worry so much about the actual gates. I want you to know that almost every single one of those gates is a gate on the emotional solar plexus, with the exception of the 61, the 61, the 60, and the 41, which are all gates that are about fantasy and dreaming and sometimes not always being realistic, right? So we have just this huge communication theme this month that's either rooted in fantasy in a good way, or sometimes not always a good way, or is deeply potentially emotional. So it's really possible this month that as we talk to each other, that we're going to be bringing all this emotional stuff into the communication arena. And again, it's very easy, particularly when we are speaking from this emotional place, and potentially we're speaking from a fantasy-based emotional place, that we might not be seeing reality, and we might be experiencing intense emotions. And those emotions might be coming out in ways that maybe we don't want them to come out. And so it's really an important month to get practiced, our theme for the month, to get practiced in taking a breath. And if something is triggering you, or it's something intense is coming up in an interpersonal conversation, or, in communication, rather than reacting, which is so easy for us to do these days, right? I just literally had a conversation with our team about this last month, that we're so practiced in getting on social media and zipping out a quick response, right? Or we're so practiced in, quickly answering something because we're in this speedy culture, that sometimes we need to stop before we type too fast or say something too fast, and go breathe and feel our way into why is this activating me so much, and making sure that we're speaking from a place of clarity and alignment rather than reactivity and fear. And so that certainly I would say this month, be really careful of how we're talking to each other. Choose your words carefully. Choose your words with great intention. You all are in the chat here on Zoom. People are putting all kinds of things about gates. You can go down the rabbit hole with gates, but I want you to hear the main point. Be mindful with your conversations and how you talk to people this month, because the potential for it to be very emotional is huge. The next thing we're going to look at is Venus. Now, Venus is where we hold our values, and oftentimes is about things that we care about and love each other. It's the places that we love. It's relationship energy and a relationship energy month, right? So Venus this month goes from the gate 38, the gate of the visionary, which sometimes can be also a place where we go to the mat with each other and fight. It highlights the gate 54, the gate of divine inspiration, the gate 61, the gate of wonder, the gate 60, the gate of conservation, the gate 41, the gate of imagination, the gate 19, the gate of attunement, and the gate 13, the gate of narrative. So here's my summary. Don't get too lost in the gates. Most of these transits are happening around the root center. So in the shadow, Venus can be bringing us a lot of pressure. And of course, it's relationship month, right? And it's relationship month. And that pressure is about time and timing. The root center is all about time, right? The pressure to get it done and get it done fast. And so we have all this pressurized energy showing up in Venus. And so I really want to invite you, as we explore what we value and what we care about this month, to think about what stories are you telling about your dreams and your reality? What stories are you telling, and what needs to shift? Because the thing is, we can't control time. We cannot control time, but you can influence time, and you can influence timing. And the way in which you can influence, one of the many ways that you can influence time and timing, is to make sure that you have room for whatever it is that you think you want or need next. And oftentimes, when we have an old story of limitation and lack, or an old story of pressure, or an old story about needing to prove our value or needing to be right, whatever those pressures might be, those old stories hold space. And when they hold space, they don't leave us room for growth and evolution. And so a really important month for you to look at: what stories are you telling yourself? What story especially are you telling yourself about time and timing, particularly in the context of relationships? Let's be real. Relationships take patience, and people, our partners, our children, our parents, ourselves, we don't transform instantly, right? We need time and repetition sometimes to get things right. It's like titrating. When you're titrating chemicals in a lab, right? It's not going to, when you're adding drop by drop by drop to create a chemical reaction, you're not going to pour it all in and have change instantly. You're going to do it drop by drop. And so let's all be patient with ourselves and with each other, and be patient with our capacity to tell better stories and embody those stories. Because again, we can tell the better story, but sometimes it takes time to really embody that story. The next planet we're going to look at is Mars. Mars travels through the gate 61, the gate of wonder, the gate 60, the gate of conservation, the gate 41, the gate of imagination, and the gate 19, the gate of attunement. So again, Mars is a place where we have oftentimes lessons to learn. Sometimes Mars can be considered places where we fight and can be war energy. Again, this theme of war, right? And certainly what we see in the gates that are highlighted by Mars, again, the same potential of fantasy versus reality, projections versus your own stuff, right? And this same theme that's about readiness and exploring whether we're being codependent or whether we're dialed into somebody else's emotions and we're reacting because we're being empathic rather than being in integrity with ourselves. But at the same time, as I said, there's this shadow of fantasy, projection, and reactivity, right? But also this potential for alignment and true intimacy if we are holding true to our value, same theme here, right? Our value and our values. So if you're strong and solid in your value, you're strong and solid in your values, you know what you want, you're clear, you're asking without hesitation for what you need and want, then we set the stage for deepening intimacy, for rewriting the agreements we have in our personal relationships, or establishing new relationships that are more aligned with our value and our values. So it has the potential. Everything this month is like this or that, right? There's not a whole lot of middle ground in the transits this month. The next thing I want to look at are the moons this month. So on February the 10th, we have our new moon. That's the Chinese New Year, the year of the dragon this year, right? Our new moon highlights the gate 49, the gate of the catalyst. Now, here's where, normally I'm already, every February, I'm already going, why do we have Valentine's Day this month? Is the worst month for Valentine's Day, right? But I would say this year, it's a little even more intense than usual. So the gate 49 in the shadow is sometimes called the divorce gate, right? And so we have all this energy in our cultural story about connection, romance, blah, 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 right? And the moon says, hold up, time out. Do you really want that? Is this person really holding true to what you think is valuable and precious and important in your own life? Is this person seeing your value? Are you holding your value? Because if you're not, when this energy is at play, it's definitely a line in the sand kind of an energy. Like if any of you have the gate 49 defined in your chart, I have a daughter with this. What that means is that if somebody crosses the line, and that line can be up to you, what you think that line is. But if somebody crosses the line, that's it. Basta fini, right? You're done. You then there's usually no going back. If you cross over that line because the rules of the relationship have been broken, done, right? So the new moon is highlighting this energy. Now, we could say, right, bad news for Valentine's Day, but we can also say this. This new moon is saying, hey, it's time for you to build relationships with yourself and the world that match your value. And so if you're in an arrangement with someone, if you have emotional agreements or you have relationships and those relationship agreements are not holding up, they're not staying true to your value and helping you hold your value, then time to make a clean slate. That doesn't necessarily mean get rid of the person, but it does mean you got to go back and have a conversation and maybe a series of conversations about how do you need to rewrite these relationship agreements? Because if you're not if those agreements are not embodying your value and your values, you've got to make a change. This new moon will help you make that change. And that's really powerful because the next new moon, the next moon, the full moon, which happens on February 24th, depending on where you are, highlights the gate 59, the gate of expansion. Again, we've got revolution and divorce in the new moon. We have expansion, but this expansion can sometimes be war, lack of resources in the shadow. So we have, again, the moon is sitting on these two energies that are really pushing on us to define our values and to cultivate an internal sense of abundance, right? Because if we don't, then we run the risk of reacting. The gate 59 can be a really sexy gate. It's actually half of the channel of reproduction and mating in traditional human design. I think it's interesting and important to note it points towards the emotional solar plexus. So again, we have all of this like really intense emotional energy this month. What that means is that war and sex are both emotional decisions, which we know from human design are decisions that are designed to be made over time with clarity, not in the moment, because the consequences of both war and sex can be life and death, literally. And so we are really having to confront the gravity of these choices and to really make sure that whatever choices we make this month in this milieu and this matrix of all this emotional, passionate, fantasy-driven energy this month, that these decisions that we make this month are not rooted in emotional reactivity, but rather deliberate and intentional actions. And those deliberate and intentional actions only happen when we've practiced ahead of time how to be deliberate and intentional in response to our choices. And so again, bringing us back to this is the month that your biggest love affair has to start first with falling madly and deeply in love with yourself and not settling and not compromising on your value or your values in any way, shape, or form. All right, that brings us to our last two little planetary positions. Let's talk about the sun and the earth. And again, I'm going to run through the gates quickly just for your information, but I'll summarize them thematically for you. This month, the sun moves through the 19, the 13, the 49, the 19, the gate of attunement, the 13, the gate of the narrative, the 49, the gate of the catalyst, AKA the divorce gate, the gate 30, the gate of passion, the gate 55, the gate of faith, the gate 37, the gate of peace. By the way, that gate of passion, that gate 30 is also the gate of burnout. So much passion, we burn out from it, right? So the sun is also traveling through all of these emotional gates, right? All of this emotional energy. And I want you to note that the sun moves from the divorce gate, the gate 49, into the passion gate, AKA also burnout gate, right at Valentine's Day. Every flipping year. Sometimes Valentine's Day happens on the divorce gate day. Sometimes it happens on the 30. This year, it's like right smack dab in the middle. And so we have Valentine's Day right in the middle of divorce energy and passion energy and all this fantasy and confusion and intensity, all this pattern breaking energy. We're like, why do we put it there? Why do we put Valentine's Day there? Personally, I think we should put Valentine's Day maybe on May the 3rd. That might be a good day. Or maybe in June sometime. I think those are much better days for Valentine's Day. Having Valentine's Day in February is a little dodgy. All right, so the sun is telling us, breathe, don't make rash decisions. Check in and feel where your heart is. Don't compromise and settle on your values. Be mindful of fantasy and make sure that the projections and the fantasies that you have are in alignment with truth, and they're pointed towards growth and expansion and not towards delusion. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And here's some things to pay attention to, because the earth, which is our grounding energy, earth gives us a code. Gates that the earth moves through over the course of the month gives us a code for what we need to do to nurture ourselves. The earth travels through the gate 33, the gate of retelling, through the gate 7, the gate of collaboration, the gate 4, the gate of the answer, the gate 29, the gate of devotion, which is a good energy, by the way, for Valentine's Day. That's what we should do Valentine's Day at around August the 20th. That's a good day for Valentine's Day. The earth travels through the gate 59, the gate of expansion again, and then it ends up with the gate 40, the gate of restoration. And so really what the earth is saying, do you like your story you're telling about yourself? Is it working? Is it a true story? Have you forgiven anything you need to forgive? Have you let go of anything you need to let go of? Is there anything going on in the story that you tell yourself in the world about who you are and how you are that needs to change? This is a really good month to take a breath, to strengthen your connection to yourself and your story, to retreat back to the question, what do you want? Is what you want showing up? What's your story about what's showing up? Are you telling a story that says you're worthy of receiving it? Do you like your story? Yes. Then keep telling it. Do you not like your story? Then for God's sakes, rewrite it. This is a month where the earth is reminding us to be practiced and disciplined, and to build the capacity of intentional creation, deliberate creation versus reactivity. So that's our overview of the month. Again, I want to remind you that if you need some support and some strengthening of your story, come join me in our Understanding Human Design membership community so that you can get the support that you need and you deserve to really stay true to your story. I want to end with a thought. We've talked a lot about values, value, and your story, and we've talked a lot about hustle versus alignment. The one thing that I want to share with you is we have this big will center theme coming up. And when we think about will center, we often associate it with willpower, but we don't always remember that the source of power in the will is our own inner sense of value. To a certain degree, that will center and your self-worth is a key that opens a lock. It's a key that unlocks your true creative power. If you think about emotional energy and where that lives in the chart, emotional energy is over on the right-hand side of the chart. There's a channel, the 4037, that pushes towards that will center energy. When we tell a story, that story we tell creates an emotional response. So if you have a story, let's say about money, And that story is a great story, a story that says, I'm worthy of money, I deserve money. And it creates a really expansive, excited, emotional quality of energy. That energy then calibrates your heart to attract more of that story, more of that experience in your physical world. The point that calibrates, though, or the center that energy has to travel through is the will center. So that will center, if you think of it, it's like a lock, right? Or it's like a little gear that shifts into place. If your sense of self-worth is high and you shoot that emotional energy into that will center, then that same energy then travels to the heart. And it kicks you into a state of coherence, which is a highly creative state. It's a highly attractive state. And it's a state that fosters not only creativity, but well-being of every kind, including physical well-being. But if we don't value ourselves, if we have somehow internalized the message that it's not okay to be who we are and how we are, if our personal integrity is compromised because we don't value ourselves and we think we have to do something to prove our value, or we're afraid to be authentic, we hide out and we don't be who we are in the world. That same lock, right? That same little gear there, when that hits that emotional story that says, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, there's not going to be enough, I'm worried about this. When we hit that will center, that energy, instead of shooting to the heart and creating a state of coherence, shoots down to the spleen and kicks in this fight or flight response, this fear response. This is a state of non-coherence, which actually activates a stress response. Your cortisol goes up. You activate a low-grade fight or flight response, and you become less creative and more reactive. You're more prone to going back into an old pattern, an old cycle of reactivity. The key, if you will, to unlocking your creativity, the key to unlocking your true creative power is your sense of self-worth. And so this month, the planets are really saying, hey, you deserve more. You are enough. You need to remember that you are a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event and that you have a unique and vital role to play in this world that only you can play. There's literally never been anybody else like you before. There's literally never going to be anybody else like you again. You are such a unique event. And your very existence makes the universe what it is. If you weren't in the universe, it wouldn't be what it is today. If you were not here, we wouldn't be who we are. This month, I want you to be your own Valentine first. For you to remember that unique role that only you can play, and to do whatever it takes to rewrite any story of limitation and lack, any story where you're not standing in that space of deserving in your mind all the goodness that is due you. So take some time this month to fall in love with yourself, date yourself, romance yourself, buy yourself chocolate if you want, or a diamond, whatever you think you want for yourself. You do it for yourself. Don't depend on anybody else to fill that sense of worth and value. Only you can do it, and you deserve it. And here's the thing. When you stand in your value and you know how precious you are, and you know that you're a unique and vital, you're a unique and irreplaceable vital part of the cosmic plan. When you know that, like you really know that, all of a sudden there's no lack, first of all. And secondly, there's no competition because there's literally no one else that can take your place. There's no one else that can take your right place in the world. And when you understand that, not only does your life get better, you start to see our divine siblings through a much different lens. You start to recognize that they are also once in a lifetime cosmic events, that they are also unique and vital parts of the cosmic plan. And for us to be who we are, not only do we need to take care of ourselves and sustain ourselves, we need to do everything we can to sustain each other. To me, the lock and key to world peace is telling a story about ourselves individually and truly embodying that story that holds our own value so that we can better hold our value for others. So we can better see the preciousness of each and every creation on this planet. So that is what I want to leave you with this month. Take good care of yourselves. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Thank you, Jamie, for answering everybody's questions and answering all the texts. Again, just a quick reminder. Again, my gift for you, because I want you to grab that value piece. I want you to own it. I don't ever want you to doubt your value again. Join our membership. 1 month free trial. Come in, no risk. Check it out. Join me in the calls on Mondays. Let's hang out together. Let's be part of our community so we can stand with our hands behind each other's backs, moving all of us forward into a world of equitable, just, sustainable, abundant peace. Be well. Take care.